My name is Brittany. I still remember that fateful meeting like it was yesterday. Mr. Thompson, the big boss, sat at the head of the table, looking as pompous as ever. His nephew, Jake, a 22-year-old fresh out of a fancy business school, was sitting beside him, looking cocky with an air of entitlement. "We're giving your division to Jake. You're clearly not up to the task of running it anymore, Mr. Thompson declared, as casually as if he was discussing the weather. There were about 10 other people in the room, and I could feel their awkward gazes, the shifting in their seats, and the uncomfortable silence. I'd spent 8 long years building this division from the ground up. I'd faced countless challenges, sleepless nights, and endless negotiations to make it what it was today. And with just a single sentence, he was taking it all away from me. "Congratulations to him," I managed to say with a forced smile. Jake nodded at me, as if I was being utterly reasonable and knew my place. But let me take you back in time to how I got to that moment. 8 years ago, I was brought into Mr. Thompson's company to handle a division that was on the verge of collapse. It was a mess. The relationships with our suppliers were in shambles. Half of them were ready to pull the plug, and the other half were only sticking around because of unbreakable contracts. Mr. Thompson gave me an ultimatum in my first week. "Fix this division in 6 months, or we shut it down." Well, I didn't fix it in 6 months. Instead, I dedicated 2 years to completely rebuilding it from scratch. I visited each and every supplier personally. I went to their factories, their family-run coffee shops, and sat with them to learn about their operations, their needs, and the grievances they'd had with the company, which no one had bothered to listen to before. There was this one supplier, Mr. Lee. He was a tough-talking, no-nonsense kind of guy. When I first met him, he said, "You're the 6th person they've sent here in the last 4 years. Why should I trust you?" I told him, "Because I'm not here to boss you around. I'm here to make sure we work together efficiently and don't waste your time." It took me 4 months to gain his trust. After that, he'd answer my calls at any time of the day, not because of a contract, but because he knew I'd always keep my promises. Over time, I built strong relationships with all 18 suppliers. It was one conversation at a time, one promise kept at a time. By the 3rd year, our division was outperforming all the others in the company. By the 5th year, our profits had doubled. And by the 8th year, we were the driving force behind the company's expansion into new markets. Mr. Thompson, on the other hand, had never once said thank you. He'd show up twice a year, stroll around the office for an hour, and then leave. He didn't know the names of the people who worked under me, and he had no clue how the division actually functioned. He just saw the rising numbers and assumed it was all automatic. 3 months before that dreadful meeting, I was having breakfast at my regular small diner near the industrial park. It was a quiet place with good food, and I'd been going there for years. That morning, a man sat down in the booth behind me. I recognized his voice as soon as he ordered his coffee. It was Mr. Harris, the CEO of our biggest competitor. We'd never met face to face, but I'd heard him speak at industry conferences. He had a reputation for being smart, straightforward, and not one to play games. I almost got up and left, but then he turned around and said, "You're Brittany from Mr. Thompson's company, right?" I nodded. "Do you mind if I join you? I'm not here for business, just curious about something." He moved to my booth and ordered another cup of coffee. Then he dropped a bombshell. "How long do you think it'll be before Thompson finds a way to push you out?" I must have looked puzzled because he continued, "I've been watching Thompson for 12 years. He finds a capable person, lets them build something valuable, and then hands it over to a family member or a crony. It's happened to 4 people I know personally. You've been here 8 years, and your division is highly successful. You're about to become a problem for him." "Why would I be a problem?" I asked. "Because you know too much," he said. "People respect you more than they respect him. And at some point, you might realize you have the upper hand, and he can't control that. I didn't believe him at first. I thought he might be trying to recruit me or mess with my head. But there was something about the way he said it that stuck with me. We started talking, not about work, but about how the industry really worked. We discussed the people who made all the business operations possible behind the scenes, and how relationships were the most valuable asset in this line of work. When we finished breakfast, he scribbled his personal number on a napkin and said, "If I'm wrong about Thompson, I apologize for wasting your time. But if I'm right and you ever want to talk, here's how to reach me." 2 weeks later, during a casual chat, Mr. Thompson mentioned that Jake was about to graduate and was really bright, ready to take on a significant leadership role. That's when I knew Mr. Harris had been right. So I reached out to him and met him for breakfast again. This time, I asked him some tough questions. What would happen if some suppliers decided to switch sides? How difficult would it be to establish new partnerships from scratch? And what would it take to make the transition smooth for everyone? Mr. Harris listened intently and then said, "You're not just thinking about changing jobs. You're thinking about something bigger, the consequences of pulling the foundation out from under the company." I replied, "When someone who doesn't understand the business tries to run an operation built on trust, chaos ensues." He leaned forward and said, "Keep talking." Over the next 3 months, I met with Mr. Harris 9 times. We never discussed anything illegal or unethical. We just talked about relationships, about the 18 partnerships that kept my division running like a well-oiled machine. I introduced Mr. Harris to 3 of our key suppliers. I simply said, "This is Mr. Harris. I respect him, and he understands how important you are to our business." That was enough for them. They met with him, had conversations, and saw in him someone who truly cared about building long-term partnerships. I never told them to leave our company. I never hinted at breaking their contracts. I just ensured they knew there was someone else in the market who valued their work and would treat them fairly. Then came that fateful morning meeting. Despite 3 months of preparation, I still felt a knot in my stomach when Mr. Thompson uttered those words. Everyone in the room knew it was a lie. They'd seen me build the division from nothing, watched it grow year after year. But nobody said a word. Mr. Thompson was the boss, and he could do whatever he wanted. After the meeting, my colleagues came up to me quietly. "This isn't right. We know what you've built here," they said. I thanked them and told them it was okay, that they should support Jake and help him succeed. But inside, I was seething. I was angry not only at losing what I'd built but at the blatant disrespect and the lie that I was incompetent when everyone knew the truth. I was furious at watching someone who'd done nothing get handed something they didn't understand and couldn't possibly manage. Mr. Thompson then pulled me aside. "I hope you understand this is just business. Jake needs the experience, and your division is perfect for him," he said. I replied calmly, "I understand completely." He looked relieved, as if he'd expected me to put up a fight. "You'll stay on for 2 weeks to help with the transition, show him the ropes, and introduce him to your contacts," he added. That Friday, Jake gave a speech to the entire division. He talked about new age ideas and innovative approaches, but his words were just empty buzzwords. People clapped because that's what you do when the boss's nephew speaks. I spent the afternoon packing up my office. 8 years of hard work fit into just 2 boxes. People kept coming by, asking if I was okay and saying they'd miss working with me. One of my longtime colleagues, Lisa, who'd been with me for 6 years, said quietly, "You'll be okay." I told her, "Just do your job as you always have." But we both knew it wouldn't be that simple because our work relied on relationships that Jake had no idea about and couldn't build overnight. That evening, I went home and sat in the darkness of my apartment. I thought about the 8 years of early mornings, late nights, and the countless hours spent building trust. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Mr. Harris. How did it go? I wrote back, exactly as you predicted. He announced it today, and Jake takes over on Monday. Are you ready? I stared at that message for a long time. Was I ready to watch the division I'd built fall apart? Was I ready to see the 18 partnerships I'd nurtured for years move on to a better place? Was I ready to show Mr. Thompson the consequences of his foolish decision? I finally replied, yes. This weekend feels so strange. On Saturday morning, for the first time in 8 years, I had nowhere to be. There were no urgent messages to check, no problems to solve, and no suppliers calling about delays or payments. I made breakfast slowly and sat on my balcony, watching people going about their normal lives. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Mr. Lee. I wanted to call before things go official. Working with you these past 7 years has meant a lot. You treated us like partners, not just suppliers, he said. I was touched and replied, it meant a lot to me too. Do you think Jake understands how this business works? No, he said honestly. But that's not my problem anymore, I added. There was a pause, and then Mr. Lee said, what if there was an opportunity for someone else to step in? What do you mean? I asked. I've been talking to Mr. Harris. You introduced us a few weeks ago. He's different. He reminds me of you, of why I got into this business in the first place. My contract with your old company ends on Monday morning. There's a renewal clause, but it requires both parties to agree. What if I just don't renew? I said carefully, that's your decision to make. I've made it. I just wanted you to let you know, he replied. After he hung up, 3 more suppliers called that day. They had similar conversations, thanking me, mentioning Mr. Harris, and asking for my opinion. I didn't tell them to leave, they'd already made up their minds. They just wanted me to know that they remembered who'd truly valued their work. On Sunday evening, Mr. Harris called. Tomorrow is going to be chaotic. Are you sure you want to witness this? I replied, I built that division. I have to see what happens when someone tries to break it. He said, just remember, once this starts, there's no going back. Those relationships will leave, the division will struggle, and your colleagues who work there will also suffer. I'd thought about that. I thought about Lisa and the others who'd trusted me and worked hard. But I said, Mr. Thompson made his choice. He thought someone with no experience deserved to run something that took years to build. Now he'll learn the cost of his decision. On Monday morning, I stayed at home. I made a cup of tea and tried to read, but I couldn't focus. Around 10 a.m., my old work phone started buzzing non-stop. There were messages from Jake's assistant, the operations manager, and even Mr. Thompson's direct line. I turned it off at 11 a.m. Mr. Harris sent me a message, it's happening. 4 suppliers have confirmed they're leaving this morning, and 3 more will follow this afternoon. Jake is panicking. I could imagine Jake in the office, surrounded by people trying to explain why everything was falling apart on his first day. He was probably blaming them and calling his uncle. By the evening, Mr. Harris sent another update. 7 suppliers have left so far. Jake is trying to call them directly, but they're not answering. Word is that Mr. Thompson got involved around 3 p.m. and started threatening legal action over the contracts. I asked, will that work? Mr. Harris replied, no, it's just desperation. The suppliers fulfilled their contracts and chose not to renew. On Tuesday morning, I turned my old work phone back on. There were 43 messages. I didn't read most of them, but I read the one from Mr. Thompson. We need to talk. The situation with the suppliers is critical. I know you have a good relationship with them. I need you to help fix this. I wrote back, I don't work there anymore. You made that clear on Friday. His response came quickly. This isn't about pride. It's about the business and the people still working here. Be professional. After he'd humiliated me in front of everyone, lied about my capabilities, and given away my hard work to an incompetent person, I didn't respond. Around noon, Lisa called. Her voice sounded exhausted. It's chaos here. We don't know what to do. We have orders we can't fill. Jake keeps having meetings, but nothing is changing. He asked me this morning how to contact Mr. Lee, and I told him I didn't know. I said, you did the right thing. But then she said, but people are worried about their jobs. What if the division fails? That hit me hard because she was right. I'd wanted Mr. Thompson and Jake to face the consequences, but I hadn't fully considered the impact on my colleagues. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't want this to hurt you. I know, but it is hurting us, and I need you to know, she replied. Wednesday brought more messages, this time from Jake. I know you're angry. I get it, but I need your help. The suppliers won't talk to me. You built these relationships. You must know how to fix this. I stared at the message for a long time. A small part of me felt sorry for him. He was just 22, and he'd been thrown into a situation he wasn't ready for. But then I remembered his cocky attitude during the meeting. I remembered him nodding as if I was being reasonable when I congratulated him. He'd received something he hadn't earned, and now he had to deal with the consequences. I didn't reply. That afternoon, Mr. Harris called. It's a full-blown disaster. 9 suppliers have left completely, and 2 more are considering it. The division can't function. They'll have to breach contracts with their buyers, which means legal issues, financial penalties, and a damaged reputation. Exactly. It all boils down to one bad decision, giving a complex operation to an inexperienced person. How's Mr. Thompson handling it? I asked. Terribly. He issued a statement this morning blaming the suppliers for being greedy and taking advantage of the transition. But no one who matters will believe him. They know that relationships don't just disappear overnight unless something goes horribly wrong, and everyone knows what that something is, he replied. On Thursday, I went outside for a long walk in the city. I needed to clear my head and figure out how I felt about the unfolding situation. I'd wanted Mr. Thompson to face the consequences of his actions. I'd wanted him to understand that you can't just hand over a valuable business to an unqualified person. I'd wanted Jake to learn that respect is earned, not inherited. But I hadn't fully thought about the cost to my colleagues, the buyers, and even the suppliers. Mr. Harris had been right. Once the situation started spiraling, there was no stopping it. On Friday morning, exactly 1 week after Jake took over, Mr. Thompson called me directly. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up the phone. You did this. You poisoned those relationships before you left. You sabotaged Jake, he said, without even a greeting. I didn't do anything, I said calmly. I just introduced people to each other. Their decisions after that are their own. Don't play games with me. Those suppliers trusted you. You used that trust to destroy what we built, he retorted. What we built? You didn't build anything. You showed up twice a year and took credit for my work. I spent 8 years building those relationships. I earned their trust, something Jake will never understand. He's young and learning, but you should have let him learn by starting from the bottom, not by giving him a fully grown operation, I said. There was silence on the other end. I continued, the suppliers didn't leave because I sabotaged them. They left because they knew what was coming. They knew an inexperienced person who didn't value their work was taking over. They knew they'd be treated like replaceable cogs in the machine. They made a choice, just like you did last Friday. This isn't over, he said. You're right. It's not because now you have to explain to your buyers why you can't fulfill your contracts. You have to explain to your investors why a profitable division is failing. You have to explain to everyone who trusted you why you thought Jake could run something he'd never learned to build. And you can't blame me for any of this. You can only blame yourself, I said before hanging up. I sat there, trembling, not from fear, but from finally saying what I'd wanted to say for 8 years. That evening, Mr. Harris sent me a final message. It's over. Jake is being moved to a different role. Mr. Thompson called it a strategic reassignment. The division is being restructured in an attempt to salvage what's left. How long did he last? I asked. 19 days. 19 days was all it took for 8 years of hard work to crumble when an inexperienced person tried to run it, he replied. I should have felt satisfied, vindicated even. And part of me did. But mostly, I felt exhausted. I was tired of fighting, tired of watching people who'd never built anything think they deserved to lead. I was tired of a system that valued